Identity crisis? As I continue to slowly pack my precious belongings into simple cardboard boxes, I wondered when, how, and why I had accumulated so much stuff and tried to think back to when I thought it an absolute necessity to buy them. The stuff we collect and surround ourselves with in our small, medium-sized or grand houses. Stuff that at the time was a must-have, but has now been left on the back of a shelf somewhere collecting dust or left in the back of a gloomy cupboard that we never enter. Because once we do, we have difficulty closing the door behind us and we never find what we're actually looking for because that gloomy cupboard is packed full to the brim. Are we a nation of compulsive buyers, or are we really revealing to others our true identities through our surrounding stuff? Or maybe the opposite. We're actually trying to hide our true identities with what we put on display in our showroom homes. Understandably, we need to buy furniture to make our lives more comfortable, and that piece of furniture will reflect our taste in style, colour and size. For example, a leather sofa might be the taste of the bachelor type who likes to appear to be stylish in his choice of clothes and taste in furniture. And when the bachelor brings back yet another woman to his stylish pad, he hopes that the smell of the leather will have the same effect on the woman's senses as it does on his own. The sofa that reclines could be for an older person who likes to relax whilst watching renditions of Countdown, or even a young couple who adore their home comforts and are happy to relax with their feet up after a hard day at work, and in the peaceful bliss after the kids have been washed, fed and put to bed. The retro-style sofa, with sharp angles, unusual colours and which wasn't designed to be enjoyed for pure comfort, would only look good in a large loft apartment or in the house of a real eccentric. Not made for comfort, but purely for design. Maybe for the overpaid eccentric artist who has his next piece of art sprawled naked on the hard piece of furniture while he paints him or her. Or for the high-class business couple who never have the time to sit on their too-expensive-for-words couch and practically live in a showroom not to be touched or enjoyed, just to be looked at and admired, waiting for Hello magazine to snoop around taking photos which are then showed to the rest of us mere minions. So we need furniture to complete a house to our desired taste, which will change through the different stages of our lives. But what about all the other stuff that we laden our shelves and gloomy cupboards with? I looked at all the stuff I had accumulated over the years and was shocked that I felt it necessary to buy all these things to sustain a normal, balanced life. Had I become a victim of the advertising campaigns, or was I just following suit like a lost sheep? I'm not sure which was the worst of the two. I lived in a 3-bedroom house, so in reality, I only needed 6 sets of bedding sheets and pillowcases. So why had I discovered that I had over 20 sets? I had no intention of buying more beds unless I was going to start a new business called Sleeping Under the Stars, as my garden would have been the only place I would have been able to fit more beds. Why had I wasted so much money on buying so much bedding when the old bedding was still practically new? More to the point, why had I bought them and left them in the gloomy cupboard at the top of the stairs, still in their shrink-wrapped cellophane wrappers? Did I have a bedding fetish? Then there were the abundance of towels that one large box had devoured. An assortment of small, medium, large and extra-large towels in an array of different colours and varying designs, all accompanied with a matching face cloth. There were only 2 of us living in the house. Well, 3 if I included my big pain-in-the-ass non-paying lodger Big Dave, and the odd guests that joined us from time to time, and we only had 2 bathrooms, not 22. What was I trying to prove when I placed my bundle of matching fluffy towels at the bottom of the bed in the guest rooms? Was I being courteous, or was I trying to prove to my guests and myself that I was not from the working class background I'd been raised in? As a child, we had had an array of mismatched towels, most over their use-by date, with the odd hole here and there, but they still did the same job, and they were good enough for me then, so why weren't they good enough for me now? The box labelled, "This way up, fragile," which was full to the brim of my precious vases, which I had bought with careful thought as to which room they would suit and in which spot they would be placed. I do love the look and smell of flowers, and bought them often to brighten my house through the cold, gloomy winter days, and in spring to give the smell of daffodils as Easter loomed. But I'm not Elton John, and certainly don't have his wealth to be able to afford freshly cut flowers for all of my small rooms in my house each and every day. So, for the majority of the time, the vases had been left empty, looking at me with disappointment that they hadn't been filled with bright, colourful flowers that showed off their beauty and elegance. Come to think of it, they had been mostly laden with flowers just before imminent guests were arriving for their weekend break with us. Not only had I tried to impress my guests with my bundle of towels, but I had also tried to impress further with freshly cut flowers. The vases hadn't really been for me at all, but for the others who had crossed my threshold. Once again, I had wasted money just to impress others. Then there were all the other stuff that I had no idea when they had been bought and why. Ornaments, books, CDs, DVDs, picture frames, and so on and so on. The list was endless. There was also the list of stuff that others had bought for the young couple as housewarming presents, birthday and Christmas presents, which consisted of mostly electrical appliances. The wine chiller, a nice idea but not very portable as I don't have a plug socket in my garden, so if I need wine chilling in the house, then I would place it in the fridge. A present that had been left to chill by itself in the back of the gloomy cupboard. The ice crusher, a gimmick that had only been used once at the first barbecue party of the year. Crushed ice is not really something you put with a glass of beer or white wine. It's generally used for cocktails, which wasn't really something me or my friends and family drank. So after the first party with lots of crushed ice, the machine was neatly placed on a shelf in the kitchen where it had sat for the last 2 years, simply gathering dust and staring down with icy content. And we can't forget the obligatory juicer, which every household has hidden somewhere in their kitchen, probably just out of reach in the gloomy cupboard with the rest of the gimmicky appliances. The juicer had been used to kickstart that health routine, making fresh orange juice in the morning and juicing every type of fruit to get those vitamin C's running through the bloodstream. For the first week, all had been fantastic. The juicer was a godsend and had been juiced like mad. Slowly but surely, the time spent juicing had become less and less as the health routine had quickly diminished. So the juicer had once stood proud and tall with pride of place in my kitchen, and now had been abandoned and put in the gloomy orphanage with the rest of the orphans left to suck on its own sap. We all live our lives buying and receiving gimmicky stuff, and we all live our lives receiving the strangest of things that the giver had thought it's something normal to give. These strange gifts are normally received with a look of horror or bewilderment hidden behind a fake smile. I had received many such gifts, and it's not difficult to guess who the giver had been. The first strange gift was the milk jug. Sounds quite normal, and maybe I needed a milk jug, but this was no ordinary little milk jug. Firstly, its colour was yellow, which matched nothing in my kitchen. Then there was the strange shape. It looked like it had been dropped a few times or beaten with a small stick. The surface of the jug was full of dents here and dents there. The jug itself was not like fine porcelain, but very thick and bulky looking, as though it had been made out of a cow clad in the Stone Ages. On an inspection of the inside, you would find that it would probably hold a thimbleful of milk. Not very practical if I have more than one person over for tea. So when I had received the gift, I had put on my fake smile and hidden my look of bewilderment, as at first I wasn't actually sure what the strange-shaped object had been and why Mrs. Stuck-Up was giving it to me, and I had accepted it graciously. On later inspection of the odd-looking yellow clump of cowclad, I had realised that the too small for milk jug had been handmade by the person who had given it to me, as her initials had been crudely engraved into the underside. Had it been something she'd made with tender, loving care whilst thinking how much her daughter-in-law desperately needed a milk jug? Or had it been something she'd originally made to match her own suspiciously yellow and green-coloured kitchen and then decided that it hadn't really turned out as she planned, and obviously thought of me as the person who she could give it to as a Christmas present without any pangs of guilt. Had I been made a secret member of the Unwanted Gifts Club? I believe I'd been given life membership, as the strange gifts kept rearing their strange heads, and each time I accepted a gift from my mother-in-law, I would plaster my face with my fake smile, look in awe at the strange object whilst thanking her politely. But the strangest of them all was the hand. Not a real hand, of course, as if it had been a real one, it would probably have been mine that she'd have chopped off, wrapped neatly in a pretty coloured box and then handed it back to me. No. This hand was another oddly looking handmade ceramic, with the hand placed upside down with a strange cupping effect of the fingers. My two initial thoughts on receiving this strange object were, 1. What the hell was I supposed to do with a hand? 2. Where the hell could I put it without it being visible to me, but visible enough for when the mother-in-law visits and inspects that her strange items have been placed on display? The hand disturbed me deeply, as I was pretty sure it was a cast of her own hand. So why had she given me a strange cast of her own small, delicate hand? Was it a suggestion of a handshake? Her way of apologising for all the years of mental abuse she put me through? Or was it a hand that suggested a slap in the face? I was surprised that one of the fingers hadn't been placed discreetly in the air, just enough for me to know that she was telling me to spin. I did not want any bloody hand in my house, let alone a hand of my mother-in-law. I didn't have a clue where to place it without it freaking me out even more than it already had. So, off to the guest room it went, out of arm's reach and harm's way, left to be bemused over any future guests. So, in reality, I had literally surrounded myself with shit. Out of all the boxes that were dotted around my house, I could only claim one of importance, this being the only box that hadn't been filled full with useless and non-important objects. The box labelled photographs and diaries, packed full with photographs of me, family and friends in various locations in various parts of the world, from very young through to now, and the diaries that I kept as a child and on my travels, religiously recording each day as it had passed, full to the brim with memories of my life so far. The box that I wouldn't have swapped, even if I'd been offered the same size box loaded with £50 notes. I placed this box with the other few boxes that were headed for the mansion. If I was to stay there for 6 months, then I needed my memories with me. After all, I needed something to help keep me sane.